In this review, we're going to be going over how Daya does as a support, a DPS, how she does in fulfilling her roles, and just giving her a pure evaluation from that perspective. I'll be going over a variance of different teams that I like to run her in that I've tried. I've learned quite a bit from testing different things. We've tested a lot of different teams. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This character is pretty bad out of the get-go. She is pretty much a 4-star. But that doesn't mean she's borderline unusable. She is usable, but let's go ahead and break into it. Now, Daya, it has an interesting kit. A lot of people get a little confused because some people want to play her as a DPS and some people want to play her as a support. I'm going to give you my honest opinion on this. She's definitely meant to be a support. Something that is really cool is, as shown right here, is that her damage mitigation and resistance can be comboed with Xingqiu's blades and Bennett, and you can actually survive all of the Ruin Guards in their spinning arm phase. Now, not that this is really useful, but I do think it's kind of cool. It's maybe occasionally handy in open world, but maybe this is a sign to show what could come in the future. Maybe if we start to get more enemies that will stagger you. I do know she does have some perks with this when you run her in the Abyss against the Scorpion and the Burb, the bird, because they like to knock you around and it's kind of annoying. I did do some testing. I ended up running a Wanderer team comp where I had Wanderer, Xingqiu, and Daya with literally no healer, and it actually was able to clear the floor, where usually clearing that floor is pretty difficult if you don't have a shielder or a lot of heals. There are some teams that she can be run in where she can be pretty much a tenacity booster, but also run in a Burgeon team. As shown right here is an instance where she's running actually a Hyper Bloom Burgeon team. It's like a mixture. So some of the time you'll get Hyper Blooms from the seeds, and some of the time you'll get the Burgeons. So it's kind of a mixture. It's to make sure that every single seed will always be used. There won't be any seeds left over. Does it need Daya? No, not entirely. But I do notice that, you know, sometimes with Daya, you don't really need to worry about uptime on your burst like Toma, who actually needs quite a bit of ER in his build. Instead, with Daya, with Sack Sword, you can actually focus on just getting EM in your stats and not have to worry about anything else. You could go for HP if you wanted, but that is the nice little freedom. You don't have to worry about going for HP or energy recharge like Toma. You can just go for EM. Giving that freedom is kind of nice. The one problem and letdown with Daya is that her skill doesn't proc nearly as fast on the Burgeons as Toma's, so she's actually technically not as good of a Burgeon enabler as Toma is. So it's kind of a bummer. She can still be used, and having her mitigation and whatnot is still useful. I was able to clear the Abyss pretty handily with the Burgeon team that she was on, where I ended up using them right here. It is kind of nice because she is able to tank a ton of the damage and at least sponge it a little bit. It's kind of like a more comfy team, I guess you could say, as some people would say. It is pretty decent. It actually handles the Mangu Kenkis pretty well in this instance. This team does struggle with single target though, as the damage isn't nearly as good. But you still do get pretty good numbers. In this type of instance, you'd actually run Daya as an all EM with Sack Sword. And so Sack Sword actually helps with your cooldown time on your skill. But yeah, it's just a bypass. Still not necessarily the best option you could do, which is definitely going to total and put her down as far as like pros, because the fact that other characters can do this but pretty much more effectively is really a bummer. But yeah, it is something that is doable and works pretty effective. A fun team for the memes is a double melt, double pyro, or a double cryo, double pyro team where you run Rosaria and Shinha with Daya. I don't expect many people to be able to run this team, or I mean, if you have all the units, it's a pretty expensive team. It is fun. It's not great. It's okay at most. So if you're looking for something fun, this is a team you could try out. But like most of the teams, Daya is replaceable in this team. Something that I did notice is that most of the time it is pretty difficult to fit Daya in a team that actually works, that doesn't involve Shunling or Nahida. This isn't a case where that's not the option. Normally you will run Daya with Bennett though if you're looking to have her as a damage dealer. But yeah, even you can see in this showcase that, you know, that while the damage is kind of there, it still kind of struggles. And I know this floor isn't particularly the best showcase either, but it just kind of goes to show, I mean, even this team, despite having pretty okay numbers, I guess, it still suffers quite a bit. Now, one team I haven't mentioned yet is Hyper Daya, and probably a lot of you guys are wondering why. And I do think this team is okay. The big thing is that people gotta realize how strong Mona is, because this team really does rely on Mona as much as it does Daya. It is super fun. You can try it. It's not great, but it works. It definitely works. Especially if you have a pretty strong Mona. This is a pretty fun team, and I highly recommend it to any of those who did pull Daya to try this team. Try to build up your Monas, give her some love. It's a lot of fun. You should try it. The damage is pretty much there. Don't neglect Mona's damage for sure, but it's pretty fun. The problem with this though is that like any other character could pretty much replace Daya. I think her big issue though is just like her energy generation is like unnecessarily an issue, and it's like, man, this character can't really afford to have those kinds of issues at this level. I really hope they like make it so that she can, you know, generate some particles or something. It's crazy because her constellations fix a lot of her problems, but a lot of those problems shouldn't even be a thing. So it's a bummer. Don't know if they'll ever address them, but yeah, it's a shame. So I know I've pointed out a couple things, but one thing I do want to point out is there were a couple teams I didn't mention, and one of the ones most being popular is that Daya is actually pretty good with Melt Ganyu. And so that would also be an instance where I would probably pull her. Now on my main account I don't have Ganyu, but on my alt account I do. But it also made me realize that, you know, Daya would also be a pretty good character to have for Yoimiya. I noticed when playing on my free-to-play account, I don't have Zhongli on this account, that having Daya with Xingqiu would be very beneficial for Yoimiya. So I kind of wish I could go back in time and just try to pull for her on my free-to-play account. I don't think I actually have the primos to get her. But here would be actually be a good instance where getting Daya would actually help my account. So this kind of just goes to show, guys, you know, this would be an instance where it actually would help. Okay, here are my final thoughts. I think she's got a 10 out of 10 character design. I think she's got a 3 out of 10 game kit design. Yeah, her gameplay is pretty awful. And in a way, it's just hard to justify getting her just because she's not much of an upgrade. And in a game where there's so many good 5 stars, it's tough when you're a 5 star that's comparable with 4 stars. It's just tough. But there are some instances, and it's case by case on whether it might be beneficial. Now, if you didn't have Zhongli, maybe a little bit more beneficial. And there could be a case maybe down the road where she will be, but until then, I still am going to stand with this stance. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if there's any teams I missed, or if you guys have a favorite team that you like to run. I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. And until next time, take it easy.